What's up guys, welcome back to a brand new course, and in this one we're going to be learning how to make realistic product animations inside of Blender 3D. Now we're going to be making 3 realistic animations. So our first animation is going to be this Apple Watch animation right here. You can see that we are going to import the model. We're going to be lighting the whole scene from scratch. We're going to be creating all the camera animations and everything, and we're going to be rendering this animation out. You can see that looks pretty good. The lighting looks very similar to actual Apple commercials, so you're going to learn how to do that. And yeah, so you're going to learn a lot in this. So yeah, that would be our first render. After that, we're going to be moving on to our next render, which is going to be a PS5 controller animation. And this one is personally my favorite because we're not only going to be importing the models, we're going to be lighting the scene, animating, and all that good stuff. But we're also going to learn how to do speed ramping inside of Premiere Pro. Like, we're going to cover all the post-processing techniques and everything there is to know about the whole workflow from start to finish. And finally, our last animation is going to be these AirPods. Now, these AirPods look really nice. You can see that we're also going to be animating the AirPods, and we're going to be animating the lights and all that stuff. So this one is going to be a little harder. It's going to be a little more advanced. But if you really want to take your animation skills to the next level and you want to animate products, not just the camera, then this animation is going to be perfect for you. So yeah, that would be our third animation. Now, in this course, we're going to be covering the raw process of a 3D artist in making art. We're going to be solving all the problems and making all the creative decisions in real time together. So if you want to learn the actual process of making art, then this course is perfect for you. Apart from that, this course does require you to know like the very basics of Blender 3D. It is not meant for absolute beginners. You need to know like at least the basics of Blender 3D. But apart from that, if you know the Blender basics, this course is going to be super easy for you to follow and you're going to learn quite a bit. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. I really hope to see you guys in class and I really hope you learn a lot. Alright guys, so the first animation that we're going to be making is going to be this one right here. So I'm just going to play it. So you can see that it's an Apple Watch Ultra with, and it's just like the camera is orbiting around it and we're just showing like a few different parts, and then eventually we are gonna reveal the whole thing like that. And yeah, this animation is actually pretty simple and straightforward. I think this is probably the simplest out of all the animations that we're gonna make. But the lighting part is pretty interesting because usually when you're lighting like something static, like a static render of something, you want to make sure that only one side, you have to make sure that only one side of that object or one angle of that object looks nice. But when you're making an animation, you want to make sure that all the angles of that object, like no matter what angle you look at it from, it needs to look good from all angles, right? So that's just an interesting challenge that we're going to solve. And but yeah, so far so good. So let's go ahead and get started. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open Blender. So just a brand new project. We're just gonna wait for it to open. I don't know why it's taking that long. Anyway, I'm gonna delete everything and press Ctrl S just to save it. I'm gonna call it Apple Watch _ course like that. Save Blender file. Okay. Alright, so where exactly do we get the model? It's pretty simple. So there's this website called Sketchfab. I'm pretty sure you know about it, but if you go to the internet and you search for sketchfab.com, I'm just going to go to the homepage, and here you can find a lot of different 3D models. Some are paid, some are free, but if you could just go ahead and search for like Apple Watch Ultra, or by the way, any other model that you want, like you can go for a regular Apple Watch, or you can go for any of the maybe Samsung Galaxy watches or whatever. I don't want you guys to sort of limit your sort of creativity just based on this tutorial. My job here is just to like show you guys how to do stuff. Exactly what to make is completely up to you. There's no restrictions on that. But yeah, so if you search for Apple Watch Ultra, you're gonna see a lot of different good models, really good models. So if it has this download sign right here, then that means it is going to be downloadable, right? If it has this dollar sign right here, that means it's going to be paid. And if it doesn't have anything, for example, like this, then it's not going to be downloadable at all. So what I usually like to do is I like to just click downloadable. And then if you just want to see free models, you can click licenses and make sure that standard and editorial are unchecked. So now it's only going to show you the free models. So for this tutorial, what I did was actually, it was pretty interesting. So first I downloaded this model for that animation. So it was this model because it was, it was staff picked and all that stuff. So it was supposed to be good. But then I noticed some problems with this model. For example, like if you go here, you can see that the texture is sort of like cutting, and you can see that there's a sharp line right here, like even here as well. Now this, it might not be that visible right now, but when you're making like close-up animations, it was like super visible, right? And it wasn't looking that good. So instead what I did was I ended up going with this model right here, Apple Watch Ultra Orange. Yeah, this one right here. So this was a much better. I mean, I don't want to say better, but it was a more even model. You can see that there's none of those artifacts, none of those lines right there. I don't know what causes that, but it is what it is. But at the same time, I wanted the band of this model. So instead of like the orange one, so what I did was I got the band from here. I got the watch face, or like the watch, main watch unit from this. So it was pretty simple. I'm just going to show you guys how to do that. So I'm just going to download both of these. So download this. And usually if there's no FBX format, what I usually like to do is I just like to do GITF, because GITF is usually pretty nice. So just download GITF and don't do USDZ. I don't think Blender can open USDZ by default, but yeah, GITF works perfectly fine. And with this, again, GITF should be good enough. So once they're downloaded, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open them. So I'm just going to open the Apple Watch Ultra first, select everything and copy it. Then I'm going to go to desktop. I'm going to make a new folder. Oops, my bad. Just do a new folder. I'm going to call this Apple Watch _course. And then create a new folder in here. I'm going to call this band. Oops, not H band. Just band. Oops, my bad. Band. And then I'm gonna have to do that again because I accidentally selected that. Like I accidentally copied the other one. So I'm gonna paste this inside the band folder, and then I can open the other one, the orange one, and this I can select everything, and then I can also paste this outside the band folder. Cool. So I can see that we have two GITF files, and what we're gonna be doing is that we're just gonna go to Blender now, and we can go to File, Import, and then let's do GITF 2.0. And so now I'm just gonna browse over to our folder right there. I'm gonna import the non-band first because I just wanna like see how it looks. And yeah, so it looks pretty good actually. You can even go with this band. Honestly, this band looks pretty nice. It's just that I've already made, like in the past, I've made an animation in Unreal Engine with this orange band, so I wanted to like do something different this time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to press A to select everything. I'm going to press R to rotate, X to rotate in the X-axis, and I'm going to do, actually I'm going to right click this, and let's go to our side view first, just so we can sort of see how it's like, see what angle is, going to be perfect, because I want it to be like completely straight. So maybe minus 35 degrees should be fine. Yeah. Also, you can type any degrees on your keyboard and it's just gonna rotate it to that specific measurement. Perfect. So this is imported. What we can do now is we can go to File, Import again, and then GITF once again. And now we're gonna go inside the band folder and select the file in this, and import this as well. Now with that selected, I'm gonna press G and X and just move it aside like that. And then I can rotate it 35 degrees as well. Negative 35. Perfect. So now what we're trying to do is we're basically trying to get the band of this and the watch face of this. Okay. And also one other thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to get the wallpaper of this because I think the wallpaper looks pretty good. So for that, that's actually pretty simple as well. So we can just go to materials and just know what name this is. So it's EDYK. Just know like the first 3-4 letters, EDYK, and then select this, and then just click here, and then you can browse materials, EDYK, just type that, and then just select this like that, and it's just gonna apply the same material to this object as well. Perfect. So now what we can do is we can just get rid of this band, select it, delete it, select it, delete it, and delete everything except for the band, except for the watch. And even this, delete that. Go to your object mode, like your viewport mode, and then you can turn on X-ray mode. And with that on, you can just select the whole watch like that and delete it. Cool. And then this part as well, delete that. And it should be, so everything that remains should be the band, right? So yeah. Now what we're gonna be doing that we're just gonna right click and select hierarchy of the band object. Go to top view. So then we can just press G, X, and then move it in the center. Alternatively, another thing that you can do is you can just go to item, and the location you can just set the X to 0, and it's just gonna snap back to the center. Perfect. So that looks pretty good. Let's go into our what do you call it? Material preview mode, so that we can see that it looks actually pretty decent. All right, so our watch model is ready to go. Now we're just gonna move on to the next step, which is gonna be lighting this model, and then we can move on to the animation and all that stuff. So now the lighting setup is going to be a little interesting because we're not going to use the normal like 3-point lighting setup which we usually use. It's going to be a different variation of that, so I'm just going to walk you through it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first, it's generally a good idea to create a camera before you start lighting. So I'm just going to go to add camera and then go inside the camera. Then we can go to view, lock camera to view, so that we can control the camera. And also, if you want to change the orbit point of your camera or your viewport, you can press and hold Alt on your keyboard and press the middle mouse button wherever you want to set the center of orbit to, and that's just going to change it. But yeah, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my output settings and just change the resolution X to 1080 as well, just so I can have like a square frame. And another thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my camera. I'm going to set the focal length to 100 millimeters because that's what I usually like to do. And so I'm just going to place it right there. Let's unlock the camera to view. Let's reduce the size, like just scale it down a little bit. And now we can right click anywhere here and click vertical split, so we can have like 2 viewports. And then one of these viewports I'm going to use, I usually use one of these viewports to like look at our scene. And in this one, I usually like to like turn off all my widgets and everything. And in this one, we can get out of our camera and we can actually like work on the lighting itself. Okay, so I'm going to go to rendered mode in this. And before we move on, we need to make sure that we are inside our render engine is set to cycles. And the device is set to GPU compute if your computer has a GPU. If not, then just set it to CPU. And I'm going to turn on denoise as well. And I'm going to turn off noise threshold because I wanted to like render past the noise threshold. And another thing that I want to do is I want to go to the environment and the color. You can see that there's like some lighting here. I don't want any of that. I want it to be completely black, just so like I can make sure that all the lighting in the scene I'm doing myself. So yeah, I just want to do that. And now I think we can get started with the lighting. So first things first, I'm going to go to add. I'm going to add a light, and I'm going to add an area light. That's what I usually like to do. I usually like to add area lights, and because they're really nice. And I'm going to scale it down roughly the size of the watch, maybe a little bigger, something like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press X and just move it here in the X axis, right? So I can like obviously like move it aside. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to press R, X, and 90, just so I can rotate it 90 degrees in the X axis. But I want it to be the other way around. So I'm going to press backspace twice, and then I'm going to do -90, so I can rotate it the other way around like that. And then I'm going to go to the top view so we can like actually control the lighting. And now we can just place this light wherever we want, just so that, you know, it looks good. And maybe rotate it a little bit, something like that. I'm going to place it maybe right there. But you can see that it's like super bright right now. So I'm going to select the light. I'm going to reduce the power to like 5. Maybe even less. Maybe something like 3. I think 3 should be fine. And so when it comes to the lighting, the smaller your light sources, the harsher your shadows are going to be. And the bigger your light sources, the softer your shadows are going to be. So I'm going to set it like something like that. Like that size should be good. And another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it down in the x-axis and scale it up in the z-axis, something like that, so that I can cover more of the top and bottom. Okay. And if I reduce the power to like, let's say 2, I think that should look better. Actually, I'm going to bring it a little closer, something like that. And then I'm going to set the power to 1. And maybe move it right there. Cool. And then what I can do is I can also duplicate this. So I can press Shift D and X and just place it like on the other side as well. So we can like light the other side as well. And just place it like that. So you're seeing how we're sort of like doing indirect lighting. We're basically setting the light source to face there. And then some light is going to bounce off. Some light is going to basically come on the watch as well. Because if I just go ahead and, let's say, if I go ahead and just set it like the direction of the light source directly at it, you can see that it's going to be very like harsh and it doesn't look good at all. But indirect lighting, it sort of looks softer and just looks better, you know? So we're going to do that. And this light I'm going to place a little bit over here. Actually, I'm fine with that, I think, because the other side needs to look good as well, which I think it does. Cool. And I'm just going to go back inside the camera. And now what we can do is we can basically create sort of a rim light for the back, because the back is pretty dark. So I'm going to duplicate one of these, Shift D, move it to the back. And if you just have it on like just straight on like that, you can see that there's going to be no shadows. So when if we end up like, making an animation which involves the back, it's going to look pretty bad. But if what we do is if we like rotate this a little bit like that and just angle the light, something like that, you can see that it looks a lot more, a lot nicer. Or you can do it with the other side as well. Oops, my bad. And the other side like that. You can also reduce the strength if you want, 0.8. Okay, so that's an option as well. Also, one thing which you might be noticing is the fact that it looks pretty flat. Like there's very little contrast in the scene. So in order to add contrast, what we can do is we can go to our render settings, we can go down to color management, and then we can just make sure that your view transform is set to AGX. You can also set it to filmic, but AGX is just more contrasty and more like realistic in my opinion. But again, it just depends on your personal preference. If you think filmic looks better, you can go for that as well. And the look, I usually like to set it to like high contrast either or very high contrast. Now in this scene, very high contrast I think is going to be a little too much. So I'm just going to go with high contrast. But usually I like to do this before I even start lighting, so I can like sort of adjust my lighting based on that, And in some scenes you can even set it to medium high contrast if you want, but I think high contrast for us should be good. And also if you want to see if anything is overexposed or not, or underexposed in Blender, what you can do is you can change the view transform to false color. And in here you can see that everything which is sort of orange or red is overexposed. Like this part is definitely overexposed. Anything which is blue or green is sort of underexposed, so this whole part is underexposed. And anything which is gray, for example, like these parts right here, these are perfectly exposed. So you want to make sure that there's some gray in your scene. Now, like for example, like the exposure in this scene, like for at least these areas, is like perfect. So you want to make sure that most like you want to try to get as much of your scene to be perfectly exposed as you can, right? Okay, so I'm gonna place this light a little to the back like that. And also with this, you can see that we're creating that rim light as well, like at the back, because if I turn it off, you're going to see that the back was pretty dark, but now you can see that there's a rim light, which looks pretty good. And I think I can also probably just duplicate this light one more time and just place it here as well, just so we can like highlight that part of the back as well. Actually, never mind, because then the back becomes pretty overexposed. So that's the interesting thing about animation, which is that you have to make sure that your scene looks good from like all angles, which is a pretty interesting challenge. And also one thing which I usually do, and I would recommend you guys to do as well, that is to change all your light sources to basically disks. And what that's going to do is that if they appear as like reflections, they're always going to be like, a little what do you call it? They're always going to be like curved, and like they're going to be like no sharp edges, which just looks nicer. And even if you look at the original Apple commercials, you're never going to see like a very sharp reflection in them. You're going to see like very soft and very rounded reflections. So that's just something that we're going for. And now we can sort of just play around with the lighting and move it around like that. Maybe something like that. Now all this is trial and error pretty much. There's no perfect lighting setup. There's you can always like try to get it closer and closer, but it's never going to look perfect. And also one thing that I'm noticing is the top and the bottom are pretty underexposed. So I'm going to duplicate this light, Shift D, Z, and then I can rotate it down like that from the top, and then I can place this light, for example, here, and then I can reduce the exposure to 0.5. I think so far we're looking pretty decent. Also, in this animation, we're going to have a white background. So it is a good idea to like sort of visualize your scene with the background, with the actual background as well. So how do we add a white background? It's actually pretty simple. You go to the internet first, and then you just search for like white. And I'm just going to get like an image which is like completely white. For example, yeah, that should be good. We can just right click this, save image as, and I'm just gonna save it on desktop like that. Perfect. And then we can select our camera. We can go to we can just go to our camera settings, go to background images, and then add image, and then we can just open the image that we just downloaded. So that's just gonna add it on the back of our scene. But not right now, you can see that it's not visible. That's because we have that's because we're not inside our camera, but you want to make sure that this is on as well, like the show overlays, this is on as well. And also the opacity by default is going to be 0.5. Just make sure it's set at 1. So right now you're going to see that the moment I change the background, you can see that our image just looks a lot darker, and it just sort of like highlighted a need for, you know, like more light in our scene. So we're just going to add that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lock camera to view again, so I can move around with my camera and see like different angles of the watch. These angles look pretty good. This inner part is pretty dark. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add like a fill light to sort of just make the scene look better. So I'm going to duplicate one of these lights, and I'm going to press Shift Z to move it in the X and Y axes. Just place it right here, scale it up, and then just apply it in the general direction of our scene. Maybe even scale it up a little more, and then you can just sort of adjust the power based on your needs. But I think in our case, it looks pretty good already. Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with the lighting. One thing that you can probably do is you can select the material, and you can you can sort of modify the materials a little bit as well. So the way you do that is basically by just maybe reducing the roughness a little bit. So 0.4, you know, it's just going to make it, it's going to be a little less accurate than, so if you're like going for like completely accurate materials or completely accurate like commercials, then you can, I wouldn't recommend you to do that. But, you know, if you're just going for something which just looks good, then feel free to change everything you want. And this ring part, this orange ring right here, I don't want it to be that shiny. I want it to be like super rough and also metallic as well. So I think, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And let's see on this side. Yeah, you can see that the lighting on this side looks pretty good, because you can see that there's a bright part right here, but the dark part right there as well. And then the back is obviously brighter. So if I go to the back, you can see that the reflections here are pretty like jagged, and they're not very smooth at all. That's because of the mesh itself. So if you really wanna like, you know, make it look better, what you can do is you can select the object. You can go to add modifier. First go to the modifiers menu, obviously. Go to add modifier, generate, and then subdivision surface. If you add that and you up the levels viewport to like 2, you can see that it's going to look a lot more, you know, smooth, and it's just going to look a lot better. But it is going to use more resources as well, so just keep that in mind. And I think so far we're looking pretty good with the lighting. I think we're pretty much done. Now what we can do is we can basically just make some tweaks if you want. Again, you can sort of feel free to like make as many tweaks or like spend as much time on this, but I think we have a pretty basic setup. The only thing that I don't like in this is the fact that the lighting at the back is pretty flat. Like it's not very, you know, yeah, just that, I think that's the best way to describe it. It's very flat. So I'm gonna like angle the light in such a way that it looks like there's just to like create some more shadows and stuff. I'm gonna do that. Or let's do it on the other side, actually, never mind. But like angle it like that. I think that's gonna be better. Cool, that looks pretty good. I think this part, it could be a little brighter, like this whole part could be a little brighter. So in order to do that, what we can do is we can just bring this light closer a little bit. Just a tad bit like that. And yeah, I think this is looking pretty good. I think we're pretty decent. Another thing that you can do is you can go to your render settings, go down to exposure. If you want it to be a little brighter, you can just set the exposure to like 0.1, I think 0. 2 should be nice. Yeah, so you can do that. Actually, I'm just gonna set it to 0.1 because I think I just wanted it to be subtle. And yeah, I think we're looking pretty good. You can change the gamma as well. Like if you reduce it, it's gonna sort of increase the contrast in a way. But I usually like to not do that. I like to do all the post-processing like after I'm done rendering. So yeah, I'm just gonna do that later. And I guess we should just start with the animation now.